He slammed his car right into my handicap spot and smirked like he owned the place. I told him, "That spot is mine." He laughed and said, "Cry to the HOA." Before I could say another word, his mom came storming over, phone already recording. "You're harassing my son," she shouted. "I'll have you removed by tonight." I stayed quiet, even when she taped a bright red HOA warning on my door. It said my car would be towed in 1 hour. The neighbors watched from their windows. Nobody spoke. That's how she liked it. Fear worked better when it was silent. 30 minutes later, a tow truck rolled in like it was planned. Karen pointed at my truck and yelled, "That one! He's not disabled. He's lying." I reached into my glove box slowly, not to argue, not to beg, just to breathe. My daughter whispered, "Dad, please don't let them take it." The driver hooked my truck anyway. Metal scraped. My chest went tight. Karen smiled wide and said, "Rules are rules. You people always think you're special." That line hit harder than the tow chain. I didn't stop them. I didn't shout. I just watched my truck disappear down the street. Karen leaned close and whispered, "Tomorrow, you'll learn your place." That night, I sat on my porch in the dark. My phone buzzed once. Then again, a message popped up with a single photo attached. And that's when I realized Karen had no idea who she just messed with. Morning came fast and loud. I woke up to shouting outside. Not angry shouting, confused shouting. I stepped onto the porch and saw a small crowd near the parking lot. Phones were out. People were whispering. In the middle of it stood Karen's son. His red Corvette was sitting on bricks. No wheels, not one. Just empty air and shiny brake discs catching the sun. He kept yelling, "This isn't funny. Call the cops." Karen came running seconds later, hair messy, sunglasses half on. The moment she saw the car, she screamed like someone had stolen her soul. "Who did this?" Her eyes snapped straight to me. "You!" she pointed. "You did this!" "I knew it!" I raised my hand slowly. "I didn't touch his car." She laughed sharp and ugly. "Oh, please. You lost your truck yesterday. Now you want revenge." She turned to everyone and shouted, "This man is dangerous." Then she did something crazy. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. But she didn't tell the truth. "I want to report a violent man," she said loudly. "He threatened my son last night. I think he's armed." People gasped. My daughter grabbed my arm. Karen looked at me and smiled again. "Let's see how calm you are when real cops come." What she didn't know was that every inch of that parking lot was already being recorded. Sirens came fast. Too fast. 2 police cars pulled in hard, doors swinging open. Karen rushed toward them before anyone else could speak. Some of them were seeing me clearly for the first time. "My father bought this land 30 years ago," I said. "Before the HOA even existed." Karen laughed nervously. "If that was true, why didn't you say anything before?" I met her eyes. "Because I didn't need to, until you crossed the line." The second officer checked his tablet. "He's right. This section was never transferred. The HOA only leases access." Karen stepped back. "That's not possible. I'm the HOA vice president." The officer replied, "Not on this land." Her son started yelling, "Mom, fix this!" She spun on him. "Be quiet." Then the officer added another blow. "And ma'am, filing a false police report is a crime." Karen's voice cracked. I was scared. "He threatened us," I said calmly. "You threatened my child yesterday." That's when the officer asked the question that changed everything. "Sir, do you want to press charges?" The parking lot went dead quiet. Karen stared at me like she was begging without words. Her confidence was gone. No yelling, no phone. Just fear sitting on her face. I looked at my daughter. Then at the empty space where my truck used to be. "Yes," I said, "I do." Her son shouted, "This is insane! He planned all of this." The officer turned to him. "Sir, step back." Karen rushed forward. Wait. We can handle this internally. HOA can fix everything. We'll give him his truck back. We'll apologize." I shook my head. "You didn't care yesterday?" The officer nodded and pulled out the cuffs. "Ma'am, you're being detained for filing a false report and harassment." She screamed. "You can't do this! I run this place." One neighbor whispered, "Not anymore." As they cuffed her, another officer walked up to me and said quietly, "Your tow truck was illegal. We already contacted the company." I felt something heavy lift off my chest. Karen turned one last time and yelled, "This isn't over!" I looked at her and said, calm, slow, clear, "It ended the moment you touched my family." Behind her, her son's Corvette still sat on bricks, and everyone now knew the truth. She tried so hard to hide, they took her away in front of everyone. No shouting this time. No power left in her voice. Just the sound of cuffs and the quiet click of the cruiser door closing. The neighbors didn't go back inside. For the first time, they stayed, watching, like something old had finally broken. Later that day, a flatbed returned my truck. No charge. The driver wouldn't even look me in the eye. He just said, "Orders from the city." That evening, a letter was slid under every door. Not from the HOA, from the county. It said the parking rules were suspended until a full investigation was complete. People started knocking on my door one by one. She fined me for nothing. She threatened my kids. She towed my car twice. I listened, quietly. Then my phone rang again. A number I hadn't saved. She cried loud, pointed at me, and said, "That's him." He threatened my son. "He's been causing trouble for weeks." One officer looked at me and said, "Sir, keep your hands where we can see them." I did. Slow, calm. My heart was loud, but my face wasn't. My daughter stood shaking behind me. Karen noticed and smirked. "He even uses fake disability cards," she added. "He parks wherever he wants." The officer glanced at my blue placard still hanging in the empty space where my truck used to be. He didn't say anything yet. Then Karen's son jumped in. He was staring at my car last night. "I saw him." I finally spoke. "That's not true." Karen snapped back. "You don't get to talk." The officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, let him finish." I took a breath. "My truck was towed yesterday. I never left my porch after sunset. And that parking lot has cameras." Karen froze for half a second, then laughed. "Those cameras don't work. HOA disabled them months ago." That's when the second officer turned and said something quiet but heavy. "Ma'am, these cameras don't belong to the HOA." Her smile cracked. Karen blinked fast. "What do you mean they don't belong to us?" The officer pointed at the pole near the lot. "These are county-installed cameras. They went live last month." Her face went pale, then red. "That's impossible. This is private property." I looked at her and said softly, "Not all of it." She laughed again, forced this time. "He's lying. He doesn't even own anything here." The officer asked me, "Sir, do you have proof of residency and disability?" I nodded and pulled out my wallet. Inside wasn't just my ID. There was a folded card I hadn't shown anyone in years. The officer's eyes dropped to it and changed. His tone shifted. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. Karen noticed. "Why are you calling him sir?" The officer ignored her and asked, "Do you want us to pull the footage now?" I hesitated, just a second, then said, "Please." They played the video right there on the cruiser screen. Everyone leaned in. The footage showed two masked men arriving late at night. Not from my side of the building, but from Karen's son's unit. One of them opened his trunk. Inside were 4 wheels. Karen gasped. "That's fake!" The officer paused the video. "Ma'am, that's your son's car in the reflection." Silence dropped hard. Then the officer added, "And there's something else you should know." He looked straight at Karen. "This parking lot sits on land that doesn't belong to the HOA." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "That's a lie," she finally said. "Our HOA owns everything past the gate." I shook my head slowly. "That's what you were told." The officer asked me, "Sir, do you want to explain?" I looked around at the neighbors. The voice on the other end said, "Sir, we found something in the HOA files you need to see." I asked, "What kind of something?" There was a pause. "The kind that explains why Karen was so desperate to control that parking lot." I looked out the window at the empty handicap spot and suddenly understood. This was never about rules. It was about hiding something much bigger. The next morning, 2 county investigators met me outside the office building. They didn't knock. They unlocked the door with their own key. Inside, boxes were stacked high. Old files, new lies. One investigator opened a folder and slid it toward me. "Karen approved fake fines," he said, then redirected the payments. I flipped the page. My name was there. My truck tow fee listed 3 times. "She used the handicap spots as traps," the other investigator added. Easy targets. People won't fight back. My hands tightened. Then he showed me the last page, a property map. The red outline didn't stop at the parking lot. It wrapped around the entire building. I looked up. This means... He nodded. Yes, if the lease is voided, the HOA loses everything. That afternoon, residents gathered again. Karen wasn't there. Her son wasn't either. A county officer stood in front and said, effective immediately, "This HOA is under investigation for fraud and abuse of authority." People gasped. Some cried. I felt my daughter squeeze my hand. That night, as the sun went down, the flag near the gate fluttered in the wind. I thought about Karen's words. "You'll learn your place." I finally smiled. Because she had just taught everyone theirs. A week later, the courtroom was full. Not just lawyers, residents. People who were scared for years finally showed up. Karen sat at the table, quiet now. No makeup, no attitude. Her son wasn't beside her. He had left town 2 days earlier. The judge looked at the documents, the footage, the maps, then leaned back slowly. "This HOA abused power," he said, "and targeted disabled residents for profit." Karen's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, she was only enforcing rules." The judge cut him off. "Rules don't give you the right to destroy lives." He slammed the gavel. HOA authority terminated. Fines refunded. Charges approved. Karen broke down right there, crying, shaking. Outside the court, people hugged each other. Some thanked me. Some just nodded with respect. That evening, I parked my truck back in my handicap spot. Same place, same sign. But everything felt different. My daughter looked at me and said, "Dad, are we safe now?" I smiled and said, "We always were." Because freedom isn't about power. It's about knowing your ground. And never letting anyone bully you off it. And that day, everyone learned one thing they'll never forget. I didn't lose my wheels. She lost her control. Weeks later, the neighborhood felt lighter. No HOA notices slapped on doors. No whispered threats in the hallways. Just people laughing again, kids running through the parking lot without fear. One morning, a moving truck arrived at the empty unit Karen's family had abandoned. Her son's Corvette was still there, untouched, now safe behind legal barriers. Neighbors gathered as the movers wheeled out boxes. One old lady whispered, "Finally, they're gone for good." I watched from my porch, my daughter by my side. She pointed to the county flags flying over the parking lot and said, "Dad, does this mean they can't come back?" I laughed softly. "Not unless they want more trouble." That afternoon, a letter came from the county. It wasn't just for me, it was for everyone who lived there. It confirmed that all HOA actions during Karen's control were null and void. People cheered quietly. Some clapped. Some cried. But most just stared at the letter, relief written on their faces. I looked at my daughter, then at the empty handicap spot. She smiled, and I knew she understood the lesson. Power isn't about rules or threats. It's about standing your ground. And some lessons, once learned, change everything. Months later, life felt normal again. Almost too quiet. The parking lot was calm, my truck parked safely, and the neighbors greeted each other without fear. But one morning, a new envelope appeared under my door. Plain, white, no return address. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single photo. My heart skipped. It showed Karen smirking, standing behind another HOA sign, in a different town. A note was scribbled at the bottom, "Not over yet." I put the photo down and looked out at my daughter. She frowned. "Dad, what is it?" I smiled faintly, hiding the tension. "Just a reminder. Some people never learn, but we're ready, because we had the proof, the law, and each other. And deep down, I knew one thing. No matter how bold Karen thought she was, the next time she tried to bully someone, she wouldn't get away. Not in my town. Not in my family's life. And certainly, not on my land. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Its windows were tinted. But the silhouette of a woman yelling into a phone was unmistakable. Karen. I took a deep breath and walked to the curb, keeping my daughter close. She whispered, "Dad, is she back?" I nodded slowly. "Looks like she's testing the waters." From inside the SUV, Karen waved mockingly. "Still think you own it all?" she shouted. I smirked. "I do. And I've got every camera, every paper, and every neighbor watching." Her smirk faltered for a second. Then the SUV sped away, leaving tire marks on the asphalt. My daughter laughed softly, relief mixing with excitement. "That was satisfying," she said. I ruffled her hair. "It's more than satisfying. It's a lesson. Some people only respect boundaries when they've been proven wrong." And as the wind blew through the empty handicap spot, I realized the fight wasn't just about a parking space. It was about respect, justice, and the reminder that power isn't given, it's earned. And from that day on, everyone who lived there knew crossing the wrong person could cost everything. The story ends with a sense of final justice and lasting peace. Karen never returned. Her son's Corvette stayed in storage until he moved far away, and the HOA she had controlled was completely disbanded. The neighbors, once scared and quiet, finally felt safe and united. My truck remained in my handicap spot, a symbol that standing your ground and doing the right thing matters. Sitting on the porch with my daughter, I watched the sun set over our land. She leaned against me and said softly, "Dad, we did it." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and relief. "Yes, we did. And now everyone knows. No one can bully a family on their own land." Justice was served, the family was safe, and the lesson was clear. Power can't intimidate truth, and courage always wins. The story closed with the quiet strength of freedom. Respect and peace finally restored.